Hey, hello, welcome you all. This is Raman Anamaraju, MedBix webcast. Welcome you all. I have a very exciting program today. Um, that is, I have a special guest. Is another fellow physicist. Very exciting, right? So actually, it's related to all cancer therapy. Is going to talk about it a little bit, and then I'm going to present. After that, I'm going to present the space medicine. Then I will bring him back and then ask him about the all the details about the is what his company about his company. So that this is a really thank you for a lot of people that thank you for joining with me all these I'm getting excellent response from the physicians and the hospital CEOs. Thank you so much, sir, all of you, thank you. This is a program I never imagined this is going to be this direction it took, and it's very exciting. Actually, I like it. So I have the worldwide audience from all over the world today. Actually, let me, without a further ado, I'm going to bring it back. I will. This is the MedBix webcast is basically a healthcare media channel. We are live stream on 8 channels. With all my problem with my accent, still I'm very good. With I'm not definitely not Albert Einstein, but I'm pretty good. So I'm going to let me introduce you much smarter than me. Niek Schreuder. Niek Schreuder is born in South Africa, and he started a lot of ventures in the United States, and then he is very active in the cancer therapy. Let me bring him to the cancer therapy. The Nick Schreuder, his name. Okay, let me bring him to the main stage. Um, just a minute. Okay, that. Okay, so I'm going to bring him a little bit, and then I'll talk with him a little bit. 1 second. Okay. Hey, welcome, Nick. Welcome to MedBix webcast.
Thank you, Aaron. Nice to join you tonight.
Very good. I'm a fellow physicist, you are, and I'm really truly excited to interview fellow physicists. Let me ask you, can you give me some of your background, Nick? Where you're from, and how did you end up here in this kind of a situation in the particle physics area?
Yeah, I grew up in South Africa, just north of Cape Town. I went to University of Stellenbosch, entered into radiation physics, and radiation physics can branch into two branches: health physics, protecting people from radiation, and medical physics, using radiation to kill cancer cells. And so I ended up in medical physics. Started working at the basically. A national accelerator center where we had a big particle accelerator, treated neutrons, patients with neutrons and protons. And then in 2001, I was recruited by Indiana University to come to Bloomington, Indiana. And since then, I joined a couple of startup companies, moved to Knoxville, Tennessee in 2013. And 2019, I joined Leo Cancer Care. We're really developing new, innovative ways of making cancer better for the patient, cancer treatment better for the patient, and also less expensive.
So I went to actually school in Ball State, Muncie, Indiana, and then I used
Okay.
to go to the Bloomington, Indiana. Actually, a lot of friends I have. Let me ask you when you're involved with the cancer therapy, cancer treatment, and diagnostics in the medical physics. So what are as I know, there is a three modalities that people the cancer therapy is basically surgery, chemotherapy, and the radiation therapy. You're involved in the radiation therapy side. Explain what kind of radiation therapies are involved in this in the total overall radiation therapy side of it.
Yeah, radiation therapy basically branches into two branches. The one is irradiating the tumor from inside. You put a radioactive sources inside the target. You can implant temporary sources and irradiate tumor from inside out. It's called brachytherapy. Or you can do irradiate the candidate from a radiation source that's external to the patient's body, and you can shoot the radiation at the patient's body. In that, you can do with basically X-rays or electromagnetic radiation, or you can use particles. In the particle side, you can use electrons or protons or pretty much anything on the periodic table. But what was used classically is accelerated protons, helium ions, carbon ions, and several other types of ions being experimented with. Particles, other particles used in the past is neutrons, where you can use protons to knock out neutrons out of a target. Very similar to using electrons to generate X-rays in a target and then irradiate but basically the basic principle is you shoot the radiation at the target from outside the patient's body, and you have to give more radiation to the target than you give to the healthy cells. And that's the fundamental principle of external beam radiation.
Let us talk about external beam radiation. That's the most popular one. So, if you do electron beams, just the electrons, you do that. What kind of cancers you treat, and what is the advantages of that, and what are the disadvantages of the electron beam doing electron beam cancer therapy?
Yeah, so any radiation you have to, as I said, you have to give more radiation to the target than the surrounding tissues. And the benefit of electrons is they do stop at some point, but the problem with electron is not very heavy, so they scatter and they bounce and they bounce all over the place, and they eventually you shoot a specific energy electrons into the patient's body. They scatter, bounce, and the energy spread increases. So the point where the electrons would stop is not very well defined. They do stop. X-rays goes all the way through the patient's body. That's often people think about as a bad idea, but it's great because that allows us to do imaging. And if you treat cancer with high energy X-rays, we shoot the X-rays right through the body and you crossfire many beams. Electrons you can also crossfire, but pretty much it's more used to go shallow and to stop at some point. But the point of stopping is not very abrupt. So there's not disadvantages. There's a lot of advantages. It's just different radiation beams used for different purposes in the patient's body.
Particularly, some cancers are superficial cancers like melanoma, the skin cancers. You can treat much easier with electron beams, right?
Yeah, or very low energy X-rays. You can treat them with orthovoltage X-rays or brachytherapy seeds or stuff you can put on the patient's body and irradiate. The external beam radiation is more indicated for the higher energy radiation for deep-seated tumors that is deeper into the patient's body, and you have to target them very precisely to give a very high radiation dose to the tumor and less to the healthy tissues.
Yeah, actually, one of my friends, owns a company called Best Medical. They have a brachytherapy. They use the guns and the special pellets. But let us talk about the electron beam therapy. So, beam therapies. What are the other besides the electrons? What are the other particles you use in the beam therapy?
Yeah, so the most, electrons is very light, but you can start using protons. A proton is 1,836 times heavier than an electron, and carries a accelerated proton. Typically, we have a positively charged proton. We start with hydrogen. If you take the electron away, hydrogen is the first element on the periodic table. You take the electron away, you have a proton, and this proton can then be accelerated. And as the protons goes into the medium, the electromagnetic forces, the negative charge of the electrons, attract the protons and continuously slow them down. And the slower the protons go, the more time they spend in the vicinity of the electrons, the more energy they lose to the electrons, the more the electromagnetic attraction from the electrons can attract the protons. And suddenly, as they go slower and slower, they start losing more and more energy over a certain distance. Means the energy deposition rate goes up over distance, means the dose goes up. And then at some point, the protons just run out of energy and they cannot overcome the electromagnetic forces from the electrons, and the proton would just join where the electron becomes an hydrogen. And at that point, the proton really stopped abruptly. So if you shoot a bunch of monogenic protons into the patient's body, they all would stop at a certain point, not exactly the same point because you do have energy straggling, but the stopping point is pretty sharp and well defined. So we can figure out the depth of the tumor, figure out the energy of the protons that you shoot in at the patient's body, and then they would stop on the distal end of the tumor, and the dose a couple of millimeters beyond the stopping point is literally zero. It's never zero. There's always stray radiation, but it's a clinically irrelevant dose beyond the Bragg peak, which
But
now means you do not have an exit dose. And if you now shoot beams in 2 or 3 different directions you don't have an exit dose from any of the beams. You have a little bit of entrance dose, but the conversion of, the fact that you convert the energy at the point of the tumor gives you a very high dose in the tumor and a very low dose in the surrounding tissue.
But the proton therapy, protons have a special characteristic, right? They use a Bragg peak at the end, like a sudden chord. If you put a sudden break on the chord, it bumps up. So the proton therapy in the protons, they have that bump at the end. It gives you that you take advantage of the bump, and then really can put a concentrated treatment at the site of the cancer. Is that right? Do you agree? Explain to that for us, to our audience.
Yeah, so the basic, because the protons stop in at a certain depth, you can control the depth where they stop, and you can put small pencil beams next to each other, and basically it's like 3D printing. Of you could literally put the dose where you want it. You could put another spot of dose next to it. You can put the dose shallower sideways, and you're basically filling the tumor in a very similar way as a 3D printing. And so you have less dose on the way to the tumor, then you end up with a high dose in the tumor and zero dose beyond the tumor. And so that's protons. Now you can also do that with heavier ions, with helium or carbon or lithium. And in that case, the particle just gets bigger and bigger. And so you get a sharper and sharper dose distribution. And as your particle gets heavier, you also become more biologically potent to kill the cells. Now, that also means you are potent killing the healthy tissue equally potently, but you have to always make sure you have a much higher dose, radiation dose delivered to the tumor.
So you're using these high heavy molecules, heavy atoms. That's particularly because of that you can deposit more energy, because the cancers that one of the you take advantage of the Bragg peak situation is the cancers that cannot be reached easily through the process. That is, a proton therapy would be much more alternative process. Is that?
Well, you can reach all cancers with a high energy X-ray beam, but what it is, there's an exit dose. The beam goes all the way through, so the ratio between the dose in the healthy tissue and the dose in the tumor is much harder to get a high dose ratio for larger targets. We treat a typical tumor anything between 50 and 70 gray of radiation dose. To a small volume is not a problem if you do that over a couple of fractions, but if you give exceed 6 gray of dose to the half of the patient's body, the patient will die from a radiation injury. So it's a volume effect. The smaller the volume, the less, the more dose the patient can tolerate in a smaller volume. But as soon as the volume gets larger, a typical size tumor, let's say the size of a tennis ball, you really need to be careful to really not give too much dose outside the tumor, because the side effects of the damage you cause to the healthy tissue becomes very hard for the patient to tolerate. So that's where
So
the protons come in. A general rule of thumb is with protons, we can roughly deliver about 5 times less radiation outside the tumor to the rest of the patient body. It's referred to as the integral dose. And so the integral dose is the unwanted dose, is significantly less if you use protons. And it's even more less if you use carbon ions. But carbon
so
ions, of course, is much higher, or the heavier ions is much more expensive to accelerate. So that's even more expensive than protons.
So you're taking a trade-off with this one. Is a very radiation poisoning is one of the serious factors of the, if we are not careful about that what kind of a situations you're using it, right?
Any radiation can cause damage. I mean, I there is ideas that very low level radiation is probably not as dangerous as people might think. There is definitely a threshold. I think beyond the threshold, the more radiation you do, the more damage you cause. The benefits of the radiation, the benefits of the secondary radiation is by far outweighed by the fact that you can kill the tumor. So that's why we still do and should do radiation therapy. All we do is if we have a way that we can deliver less radiation outside the tumor, then that's the way what we should do. So we continue to strive to develop the beam delivery technique such that we minimize the dose outside the tumor, maximize the dose inside the tumor, and then also stay away. Of course, you want to definitely stay away from critical structures. If a tumor is very close to a very critical structure like the spinal cord or some organs in the brain, optic nerves, you want to be able to tailor the dose to get the maximum dose to the tumor and the minimum dose to the critical structures.
How do you manage the depth inside? What the depth that it can go? Is it by water? You putting a water in between, or what kind of a medium you use it to manage the depth?
Yeah, so everything the patient basically, in a very simple terms, we convert the patient to water. So you can say a piece of bone is 1.7 times thicker, like 1 centimeter of bone is equivalent to 1.7 or 1.8 centimeters of water. So when we do a CT scan, where you get the electron density from the CT scan, that electron density we convert to the proton stopping power, and then we can calculate where a proton with a certain energy will end up in the patient's body. We can also use fancy simulation techniques to simulate where the protons would scatter to, and that way you design the beam based on the shape of the target, the depth of the target, and we can do a very conformal distribution of the dose. That is pretty well figured out now. We have a good ways of calculating where the protons would stop, and we have very good ways to deliver the protons safely in various different directions.
What kind of cancers you usually use for the proton therapy, or carbon ion? What?
Yeah. So we have to clearly say that not all cancers necessarily benefit from protons. If we normally say, we have to understand what cancers are will benefit from it, and that's really the cancers that are very close to critical structures where the doctors cannot get a high enough dose to the tumor without causing a significant risk of secondary damage or side effects. So typically it's deep-seated tumors where it's close to critical structures, and tumors, for example, that's close to the central structures in the lungs, close to the heart, and just basically tumors where you need very strong control over the beam and minimizing the dose. So every case comes with its own merits. If for example, head and neck, if you radiate a head and neck tumor and it sits close to the parotid gland or the swallowing muscles, the patient might end up develop xerostomia, very dry mouth, or might have problems swallowing afterwards. Now, if the tumor is really close to those critical structures, protons will not benefit you much. If it's a little bit separated, then you can benefit from a lower dose to the rest of the oral cavity. And typically with protons, you treat a patient with head and neck cancer, you can have the patient eat normally through the course of the treatment, while if you treat that with x-rays where the beam doesn't stop, the entire mouth gets sore and becomes very difficult for the patient to eat during the course of the treatment.
Let me show you some of your company. Is called, you work for what company? You work for a leocancer.com, right? The Leo.
Yeah, we
Explain a little bit about your company.
Leo Cancer Care is a new company that was founded about 4 or 5 years ago. I joined them 3 years ago, and what Leo Cancer Care do is to change the paradigm of not having the patient lying down to receive the cancer treatment. We believe it's better for the patient to be upright. If the patient can be seated, we spend most of our time in an upright position, seated or standing. So we develop a patient position, which you see on the screen there, where the patient can be seated or standing, and then once you mobilize the patient in that position, we have a CT scanner. What you see up in the top there is a dual energy axial CT scanner that can come down around the patient, do the CT scan in exactly the position that the patient has been immobilized, and that the same is position that patient will be treated. the patient positioner can then rotate the patient in the beam. So what happens now, we can keep the beam stationary and rotate the patient. The previous paradigm had the patient stationary and the beam rotates around the patient.
Yeah.
But that
So
means, go ahead.
go ahead, go ahead. So the one of the advantage of the being upright position is that lungs don't move. Movement of the lungs, that you can minimize it. Is that is an advantage? Is that right?
Yeah, the big advantage of treating the patient upright, we spend most of our time upright, and as soon as you go lie down, there's a lot of changes in the organ positions, and but the big friend of upright is gravity. The gravitational forces on all the structures in the body tend to let the body structures reproduce better. Uh, in the lungs, the lung volume is much larger. That's why we always take a chest X-ray in upright position, so the lung volume can be larger, gives you a better density resolution in the lungs. In the head and neck area, the patient's a very simple thing. If the patient lie on her back or his or her back, the tongue drops into the back of the throat, while in your upright, your tongue is in the forward position. So you do get better organ separation. There's a significant evidence of organ separation in the thoracic space. But overall, the patient is more comfortable. We spend all our time upright, and especially patients that has chest problems or swallowing problems, they are very, very uncomfortable to lie down.
Is that
Um,
comfortable is the one thing, but its advantage, is there any clinical advantage like lung movement of the lungs or movement of the body is minimized through the by sitting upright position?
Yeah, this I want to take you back. Why are we using most of treatments, or why are medical procedures in the supine position, lying down? And in the 30s and 40s and 50s, patients were extremely sick. We did not have proper diagnostic tools to pick up cancers early, so patients tend to be very sick and had to be treated in the supine position.
Very
But
interesting.
today the paradigm has completely shifted. With early detection, we're curing 75% of patients. And you go to any radiation therapy facility, I would say 99% of patients who walk into the treatment facility get treatment. So why lie down if you can actually be upright and more comfortable? So we're flipping the paradigm now to have the patient more comfortable. The patient can see what's going on. Lying down is an extremely vulnerable position. It's an uncomfortable thing to lie down on a hot couch. Now we have a patient positioner, we have a scanner, patient can participate, and on top of that, everything now collapses in terms of cost because these machines are extremely compact. The radiation shielding is now only in one direction. You're not shooting the beam up into the ceiling of the building,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
everything becomes simpler.
Yes, I wanted to ask you about that. So it looks like a dome. So these are all contained within that dome. Everything, you don't need outside of anything. All the shielding, everything comes as like a turnkey operation. That's what you.
We are building a linear accelerator which will accelerate electrons and then bombard them into a target to generate X-rays. That machine can be somehow self-shielded, and the shielding requirements could be minimized. But when we do protons, the shielding problem still is more or less the same, but the radiation beam is now only produced in one direction, and so you only need to shield in that primary direction. The rest of the beam walls can be thinner, but this now allows us to put proton therapy systems into an existing shielded bunkers that is typically built for X-ray machines. So basically, what we're doing here is we now have a proton therapy machine that can be put into the same space as a traditional X-ray therapy machine.
Very interesting. That is a revolutionary because proton therapy requires a huge 12 feet thick walls and it's concrete walls, and then and then also you need a very strong radiation shielding. You need requires. But you're saying that with this kind of a dome structure, you can minimize and you can put in any other office, basically any other site. You can easily plug in other than a huge structures that require proton therapy requires.
Yeah, I mean, so the we're rotating the patient, and the patient weighs only say 150 to 250 pounds, so it's much easier to rotate a 200-pound patient than to rotate a 50 to 100-ton
Yeah.
mechanical structure to rotate the beam around the patient. So everything collapses. The other thing collapses to simplicity. The beam structure doesn't have to rotate. It just makes much more sense. And
So
all
the
we need
Mary
to do
is a
is,
yeah, Mary is a basically there's a proton particle treatment unit. This is right. Explain the
that's right.
Mary what the Mary is.
So Mary combines a CT scanner with a patient positioner to treat the patient in the upright position. ADA is, okay, if you go to ADA, can you go to the next slide? So ADA is
Yeah.
a full diagnostic machine. So ADA is the same CT scanner, but we have a simpler patient positioner. And this is a device that does not rotate the patient. It just have the patient can be seated or standing, and the CT ring comes down and scan the patient. So what this device will allow us to do is to do a diagnostic CT scan in the upright position with the same effort and difficulty that it typically is today to take a chest X-ray. And this machine can become extremely valuable in lung screening or early diagnosis for any thoracic problems. We also eventually will be able to do this machine to do cardiac scans as we develop the CT scanning technology. And most cardiac scans or cardiac analysis, you need to do it in upright position because that's where the blood pressure differential is the bigger problem than lying down.
Can you do calcium scoring with this ADA?
ADA is a product under development, but it is just a standard CT scanner. So yes, absolutely no problem to do calcium scoring with.
It does the full body, right? Full body scanning.
It can scan about over a 1.4 meter distance. So if it's a 6 foot tall patient, you would be able to scan in two phases. We are talking about a full diagnostic machine that will be able to do full body scans. But ADA for now will either scan the patient in the seated position from the diaphragm up or in the standing position from just below the pelvis all the way up to the head.
Okay, so it is actually very good because you can is self-contained radiation shielding is already there, so you can anybody can plug in this one and start seeing patients immediately without going through big construction. Am I
Well,
right?
the shielding, it depends on what radiation you use. If you use X-rays, the X-ray machine will do less shielding. This CT scanner will require less shielding than the typical CT scanner. But shielding a CT scanner is not a big problem. With two millimeters of lead wall is enough to shield that. So shielding has an advantage. The fact that the room can be much smaller means your total shielded volume can be less, and I think that's the big advantage.
Okay, so this is the ADA is the still is it FDA approved right now, or
No,
is it
both our machines are still under development. We'll do 2023 is the FDA approval year. We should have Marie and the patient positioner FDA approved by the end of next year. And then ADA is a second phase project will probably come in 2024. But it is the same CT scanner. So once Marie is FDA approved, ADA will probably much be FDA approved now.
What about Ruby? This Ruby is a proton therapy. This is a therapy one, right? This is
Yeah,
the ADA
Ruby
is
is
a
an
diagnostic
X-ray.
machine. This is a Ruby is the treatment proton therapy treatment thing, right?
Yeah, so Ruby is the X-ray machine. It's a 6 MV flattening filter-free linear accelerator, but it uses exactly the same patient positioner than Marie would use. And what you see here is you see an X-ray source on the left and a flat panel on the right. And this machine will do cone beam CT by rotating the patient, and then the X-ray beam comes out of the wall. So that's the extreme compact machine. And you can see it behind the patient there is that post. That is the what we will put some innovative technology in to absorb the primary beam and make the shielding of that machine easier. So
One
that's
of
a
the
standard linear accelerator machine, but it takes half the size, half the space of the classical linear accelerator. So again, two of these machines will fit into an existing shielded wall.
in countries like India, so you still here you're going through FDA approval. In India, are you allowed to sell in India and other countries right now? Or?
Yeah, we have several discussions going on in India, and these machines will eventually serve the underserved markets extremely well because they will be very, very easy to maintain. Everything is stationary. They will be easy to operate. The throughput will be high, and it's much, much easier to sit down than to go lie down. And to stand up from a seated position is much easier than standing up from a lying down position. So we do believe that the throughput will also be significantly enhanced.
Can you do can you do ADA? Can you do ADA on the van or mobile unit?
Yeah, that is
All
another.
all three you can do mobile units?
Yes,
No,
not the proton machine. The proton
not
machine will
put on
not be
machine.
mobile. The accelerator is too heavy and shielding that, but the X-ray machine and the upright CT scanning and ADA is already actively working towards having mobile solutions.
Excellent. So India is one of those countries that we need. One of the things is India is that they're looking for is a calcium scoring because we have a large problem. That is a big problem. One of the indicators is the calcium scoring is a big indicator for the India has a huge diabetic population, cardiovascular problems.
Right.
So that's one of the areas that we are working on. So actually, I did some. I wrote a book. I wrote a lot about Mary Curie, how she's an entrepreneur, she's a fundraiser, and she's a prolific fundraiser, and she did a lot of things, and she's a feminist. You did a lot of all three names are woman names. Second one is I wanted to ask you, Ada. I just came to know recently, just when you mentioned that. I went through the Wikipedia and saw that. I didn't know that she's the first female radiologist. I didn't
Yeah.
explain, give you some background on about her, if you can.
Yeah, I don't have that background, but we decided as a company to name all our products after famous females. So our patient physician, of course, is Eve, was the first female to exist, and then Marie Curie, and then Ruby was a famous Australian astronomer, and then Ada, as I said, is a radiologist.
She's the first radiologist along with her sister.
Right.
Yeah, thank you. It is a wonderful. I think that your three machines that all of them are X-ray and then CT scan and the diagnostic side and the treatment side. They're going to the upright position is the easiest one to deal with because comfort level easy to mobile wise. I used to do a lot of mobile CT scans. I used to do mobile X-rays. It's a lot of headaches, but now with the upright positions, you have some advantages definitely. So one of the biggest challenge I'm going to ask you is the linear accelerator. That is a way. What are the advances going on? Because India, it is a big challenge. Particularly radioisotopes are big challenge to that. And how do you do that in countries like third world countries and the accelerator is just make it cheaper and affordable? That is the biggest challenge. When I come back, I will ask you that question and ask you what is your company plans are for this country, and then to other rest of the world. In the cancer is the biggest threat to the humanity. We need to really solve that problem. I hope your company is coming in with the new innovations, so it would be very that the forefront of the innovation technology that you are producing. So I'm going to ask you when I come back, and I'm going to present about the space medicine. After that, I'm going to ask you about the your company, where they're located at, and your web address, and how they can reach you. Okay,
Great.
so let me go. That's a Ruby. That's what he's talking about. Ruby is a photon therapy guy. That is a electromagnetic radiation treatment. So they come back with a upright position. That's excellent. But anyway, let me talk about the. Let's bring a space. I'm going to talk about my subject. It's called. Let me bring both of us together. Okay, we can watch space medicine bringing benefits to humanity. We are bringing the medicine from space. That we think that space is somewhere there, and we are bring. It is actually we are bringing that benefits of the space medicine, space things, the physics of the space we can use for our benefits to our humanity. That's what we are trying to do. Space medicine bringing to benefits to humanity. So some of the facts about space is very irrelevant here, but I'm just going to give you to create a curiosity. Space is completely silent, as you know. You cannot talk, and because there is no air, you cannot. So yeah, there is no way you can communicate with this regular chat. There is a completely silent, dead silence. Space suit costs about $12 million. If you NASA, it costs about if you want to buy one, you can buy one actually. It costs about $12 million. It may be less now. The So we have a lot of even physicists don't even understand this. Even as a physicist, also a lot of people have confusion about this. The sun's mass is actually 99.86% of the total solar system. The mass of the sun is only 1.14% is basically is of the rest of the planets, and all the asteroids and everything is just basically 0.14%. That is a stunning. 1 million Earths you can fit in inside the sun. That is the space facts. Let's go back to the space medicine. NASA started a department, is a kind of a say the classification they did is NASA Human Health, Exploring Space, Enhancing Life is their tagline. But out of the tags, I want to talk with you about the LED, light emitting diode healing technology. I will tell you about that. This was invented by Dr. Finsen in the 1800s. He's he's a Danish physicist. But he was finding out that a red therapy can cure some of the wounds, can accelerate the healing process, can accelerate the wounds. But he was awarded a Nobel Prize for that. But very strange thing is that he didn't believe himself that really red light will cure any kind of thing. So it was went into dormant for a while. So there's a Russian physicist, Tina Karu, well, she's a biophysicist. She came back in 1980s and she proposed a groundbreaking theory that is saying that some of these light emitting diodes, the LED lights, can cure some of the Parkinson disease and some mysterious effect. She uses some mysterious word, mysterious. So, but that after that, even that is they didn't take it serious because this is just is a part of the academic exercise. They thought they didn't pay attention to it. So Tina Karu is one of the things that the 1980s from Russian Federation. She proposed this theory that light can heal some diseases. But actually, the NASA, NASA they call it a veggie station. Not a great naming innovation is not there. But NASA is called a veggie station. Actually, name of the veggie station to grow plants in the space. That is a concept called a veggie station. What they did was they gave a contract to Ron Ignatius, a guy from Wisconsin. They gave a contract and saying that to stimulate the growth of the plants through the light emitting diodes. So that was the grant he was given in 1980s 90s. So while they're working this for the plant to growth, that's in the space. That's what the grant was. Is one of the grants they give thousands of grants. Is one of them. But while they're working on this, is because they have to work on the plants and the LED lights. So what is there happening is some of the things they reported is that the abrasions on the skin that you see, the abrasions are healing faster for those people working on it. That's what they reported to NASA. Is actually came from, this is from the Marshall Space Center in Huntsville, Alabama. It's right here. I'm not that far from here. I'm from Atlanta. It's not too far from here. So that's where the Marshall Space Center gave the contract to the Ron Ignatius. And he died anyway. 2011 he died. But they reported something healing powers of the light. That's what they said. NASA wanted to take a second look at it because they didn't pay attention to all these years. What they were stunned is that what they found out is so the cells are reduced to oxidative stress. I don't know much about medicine about that, cellular functions, but I can tell you by reducing the oxygen, they stimulates the mitochondria inside the cell and creating the what they found out. They gave an exact science. So the NASA gave the exact science why the light can heal some of the diseases, particularly cancers and some of the injury to the body. So that is what they came up with the LED crystal. So actually, then that company is actually the company called Quantum Devices, started by Ron Ignatius. He died in 2011. Then the company they did not continue into the medical side. But there is another company. One of the companies, the guy working from the company moved on and opened a company called Medical Multi-Radiance Company, Multi-Radiance Medical. It's a light therapy. It's a photo. They came up with a brilliant name. I like that name. It's called pharmaceutical. They put a photoceuticals. So you can treat with the light. this so actually FDA approved it for fibromyalgia. They approved for the this light treatment, the treatment with the light. They approved, the FDA approved it recently. That is a really stunning. So it is a ringing endorsement of light can heal. That is came from the space, the space projects, not directly from. Yeah, Ron Ignatius did not get they did not use his technology to stimulate the growth of the plants in space, but they funded that one. That is the outcome of this one. The light therapy is came out of NASA. The next one is photodynamic therapy. You know that the Nick is talking about cancer treatments. There is another some cancers, very limited use of it, but some cancers photodynamic therapy can be used. They use a photosensitizers like a photofrin is a medicine. They give it to the injection. They give it to the patients, and then what it is, they become the cells become sensitized. So the people in the particularly the ones in the tumor, they get attracted to this photofrin. It's a chemical, and then immediately they become sensitized. So you hit with them with the laser lights, so LED lights or laser lights. So then they can destroy the cancer. That's a photodynamic therapy. I didn't know that. Even I'm a physicist. I didn't know this can exist, and it is becoming a popular. Actually, one of the modalities could be in the future. Could be very. It has not too many side effects. Now let us talk about the space menopause. I was advertising about it. Space menopause is one of the things is the gloves that they do. The as you know, they it says that 1.6 million people around the world every year their menopausal symptoms, hot flashes and cold flashes, followed by cold flashes. So it's a big temperature for a woman is a big challenge for the temperature up and downs. So what they did was they took the technology from the gloves, NASA space, the technology from the space gloves, and they moved into this they encapsulated this sorry, I went too far. There's a phase change. Nick can explain a phase change, but if you take a ice melts into water, that's a phase change. So they use a phase change, the micro capsules, they embedded micro capsules, they developed a high tech fabrics. So the woman can wear that, they can manage that, the temperature it manages automatic without you knowing it. So it came from directly from the space, high tech fabrics. So actually, that is a very the one of the humanity bringing getting a benefit. Woman is the Nick is a big proponent of Nick company is a proponent of all women. You put all the cancer equipment names are all women. So I'm doing the same thing. Here we are trying to help the woman. We need to advance women causes now. So that is one of the things that came from space for the menopause. You can buy the clothes actually. It is called 51 shades, I think. 51, yeah, 51 apparel.com. You can go there and you can buy you can buy 51 apparel. I think 51 after 51 age 51 you get they think that they assume that menopause you set the menopause after 51. That's why 51 apparel you can buy it actually, these clothes right now. But anyway, that is a temperature stabilizing high tech clothes that you can buy. That is a benefit from the directly came from space. The next one is space shingles. The shingles are they're basically VZV, varicella zoster virus causes the both the chicken pox and the shingles. Is the herpes virus basically causes both of these diseases. They're very painful for a lot of people, but they're all dormant for most of the humans is dormant. They're already there. So what they found out is when the space journey during the space trips, people who spend a lot of time in the International Space Station, they have this these dormant viruses. This herpes virus is coming out. So when they found out, they developed a test for that. It's a saliva test. So the strip test. It is the first. Is because the stresses on the psychological, emotional, and the physical stress of the body. These viruses are dormant viruses are springing up. So to find this step, they created a strip test. It is a when you use that strip test, with the saliva, it becomes red. That means herpes is formed, is a present. That you can, before the blisters come out, you can in advance you can find out the problem, and then you can treat it. So that is came from. So they're trying to use this kind of saliva strip test for the dormant viruses, dormant diseases, that you can really, we can find in way in advance. That came from space. The space vertigo is came from the Mir station, from the Russians had a Mir station, is a Mir station. It came from vertigo. They What they did was, it is a basically dizziness caused by, the spatial orientation and all the accelerations. They can cause vertigo. So what they came out is non pharmacological treatment. They came out with the actually, you can use now. I used to sell that machine, actually, balance training. So you can use a non-pharmacological training. It came from the space. Now vertigo treatment is a non-pharmacological training. You can train them by using the balance thing. It came from the Russian space station. That's the Russian Federation actually did a patent on it, in fact. So that is a space motion sickness. That if um, sorry, space motion sickness. Actually, the fitness. What do you call that? Fixation reflex is basically that is called that. That is the ballet dancers and a lot of these Cirque du Soleil. You go there, they're trained. They have this. They know how to be trained on the fixation reflex system. But the rest of us, we have problem. So they came back with the some technology that you can train them without a non-pharmacological treatment. You can do with the vertigo. Then the medical image processing came from NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratories. When they're taking moon pictures, the processing of the moon pictures came out. The processing actually came from NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory for MRI, CT scan, X-rays. You can do digital processing now. That is benefited by the NASA. So then is another one is a protein growth. This is a space immunotherapy, is a protein crystal growth. That is, you can do, these cells, endothelial cells. They are flat because of the gravity. Niek is talking about gravity quite a bit. The gravity plays an important role in our bodies. So the endothelial cells in our body, they flatten out at the gravity because of the gravity. So only way you can see that in the zero gravity or microgravity, you can see three-dimensional structure of the actual crystal, actual growth. You can make the proteins. Actually, you can create a protein crystal there. It's easier to do that. So they can create in the space because of that easier to create protein crystals. That's why X-ray crystallography and all those things come out. I did speak about X-ray crystallography. So there is a drug came from, that is a TOS 205. They use for the muscular dystrophy. It increases twice. Now the 2017, just a few years ago, completed their clinical trials. It reduces the twice the lifespan, increases the lifespan twice with this drug. It came from space. Now the Keytruda, they created the perfect crystal. In fact, Keytruda created in the space. In fact, they found out all the structure in the space, the Keytruda. So there are a lot of new things coming out: breast cancer biopsies and the gum disease problems and all those things. There are medicines coming from the space itself. So we have a lot of benefits from space. So there is a cardiology that I use a autonomic function test. HRV, heart rate variability, came from the cardiology side in the space. Neurology, particularly neurofeedback, because you're lonely in the space. They created a neurofeedback technology. They created it, and that is actually, we use it for the treatment of the lot of depressions and other things here on the. So the cardiology, neurology, there is a lot of benefits for they coming from space, came from space. The space first aid kits are basically, they're regular kits like you see, but what is the benefit from the kits that they're taking to the space, international space station, as a they are regular, they take regular medications basically, Tylenol, and so some of them are, that. But in the International Space Station, you can do actually perform a surgery, or you can do appendicitis surgery, you can do gallbladder surgery, you can actually perform the both surgeries inside the space station. That is a very amazing in my view. You see the guy tied up with this because of the gravity, microgravity has to be tied up. That's why you can do. So another thing is they won't tell you what the burial manual is secret. Probably they drop him out of the space. In fact, I don't know. So, but anyway, with all the respect. Um, the second one is the needles. The way you have to be very careful to use the needles in the space. They act like a bullets almost because there is no gravity there, so you can travel like a bullets almost. That you have to be careful about the. One of the things space they're trying to improve it is in the shelf life of these these drugs. Particularly, we need that shelf life because in the International Space Station, you don't come back for 6 months or 1 year. So if we are going to the Mars in the future, you need a long shelf life. So they're trying to put a silk coating on the top of it. They're trying to do some silk coating on the shelf life to improve the shelf life of these regular medicines. They use also birth control pills because space hookups are there in the space also. It can happen. But anyway, they use these there's space coating, the silk coating they're using on the drugs to improve the shelf life. So that is one of the benefits we may get from the. So a lot of countries, the countries a big problem into the Africa and other countries, India, so the rural areas, we have problem because the shelf life is a big challenge there. So you can get a space medicine fellowship. Actually, you can go to University UCLA. You can 2-year fellowship, actually space medicine fellowship. That is, and also Mayo Clinic offers you 2-year fellowship. You need to have a, I was one of my programs. I was talking about a polymath. You need to be polymath, the kind of things for this. You need to have background in internal medicine, family practice, emergency medicine, and ophthalmology and otolaryngology and psychology. You got to be kind of a polymath doctor here. So there is a 6 aerospace clerkships available for any doctor who wants to go there. Is 6 fellowships per year. NASA offers that, so you can apply. Actually, I don't know. You need to check that because of COVID. We don't know yet. So actually, the space has brought a lot of great things to the. So some people criticize why we are spending so much money on space. I tell you, the benefits are enormous, and that criticism has to be, that criticism has to be balanced out in this. The benefits we are getting. There is not even a single day you pass through without the benefit of space. So where no man can go, the Star Trek tagline is where no man has gone before, any physician can go. That is a Mae Jemison. She is a physician. She went to the space first time, and she went to the. Now she is on the NASA 100-year program, that is a DARPA program. How do you go to the other stars? To go to the much, much longer program she's on. But anyway, thank you for watching, and I will bring back and see the cancer therapy is that's we are all getting benefits from. So to promote this, Nick is asking me how do I support myself, and this is one of the things. I have a T-shirts that Mary Curie is available on Amazon. I got a approval by Amazon. I got they are US patented. They're patented, so you can buy the T-shirts from the Amazon itself. Mary Curie, you can put your company logo on it. I will work with Nick if he wants, his company wants it. We can promote it. That is a different. So it's a free of service right now. But if you want to buy the T-shirts, you are more than welcome. We can arrange a company logo on it. But let me bring uh, that's okay. Welcome back, Nick. So I gave you space medicine tour a little bit. We are physicists. Still, a lot of things I don't even know space medicine exists. How many benefits we had. That is fascinating, right? That's.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Very, very, very interesting. I mean, it's very important that we keep on supporting this technology, this development, enormous amount of things that we can make practical in day-to-day clinical medicine, as you just explained, was a wonderful lecture. I enjoyed it. Right?
Thank you. So, that one of the accelerators that, Seren introduced a lot of, in the first, I heard that in the national Los Alamos labs, I went there, where there was the accelerator was developed there, first time there. I was fascinated by that. So how much benefit at that time they didn't even know you can apply to the medicine. So now we see everything up there, the accelerator benefit right now. You can bring it to the doctor's office directly, that accelerators. Tell me, what are the advances going on the accelerator side?
Sorry, say, what is one of the
What
advantages?
anything is going on in the accelerate technology wise, accelerators, particularly medical side? What kind of things going on in the accelerator side of
Yeah,
the medicine?
I think as we now prove, as we developed upright radiation therapy, there's now a demand because the treatment room can be smaller. Can we also make the accelerator smaller? And there's many things was postulated over the last couple of years, but there was never really a financial drive because proton therapy was so expensive. We only had a couple of facilities across the world, so there was really no financial drive. So I do believe now that we make proton therapy much smaller and not needing these big rotating structures, there's going to be a huge stimulus and a motivation for companies to come forward with building very super compact based on superconducting technology, based on other type of technology that was postulated for many, many years, but never had a financial stimulus. So I do think the technology that was developed at the national labs, accelerated technology, can now be used to make super compact machines to make proton therapy even more compact.
Nick, the cancer is going up in India. For example, there's a train in the one area, one state of Punjab. There's every month there is a full of passengers train. All cancer patients go to the other parts of the India. So, is there anything that what prohibiting people now? We have India has a purchasing power. What are these countries like Africa, India? How do we give access to cheaper and affordable cancer therapy for that? If you can
That's
address
a
it.
that's a very good question. I am one of those. I grew up in South Africa. I know a little bit of the African context. A lot of people think we can send used machines or second-hand machines or cheap machines to developing countries, but it's exactly the opposite. You need to send the best machines that was developed for the super most precise first world environment because those are the machines that can work in an autonomous fashion. So what we as a company is doing, we are developing the best machine to try and make the machine the most reliable and the easiest to maintain and the easiest to operate. And that's the perfect machine to go into the developing countries. Then together with that, we build a machine that we can operate and maintain by very few people so that we then can train these people to operate the machine. So I have no doubt that what we're working on right now will revolutionize cancer therapy and will have a massive benefit in the developing countries, which is typically totally underserved in terms of cancer treatments. I mean, I think
Yeah,
in the entire continent of Africa, I mean, I think the state of Tennessee has probably 100 times more linear accelerators than the entire continent of Africa.
it is
I
sad.
hate to do that comparison.
Yes, definitely. I think one of the things was we all under the impression in GE or Siemens or big companies, these Fortune 500 companies, Fortune 100 companies will really revolutionize. In fact, small companies like yours really bring these kind of affordable technologies to the front, and then treatment things front to the there's a massive population. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think there's several folks in a big initiative driven by Dr. Professor Lawrence Court from MD Anderson has already showed that radiation therapy, you can actually do standardized treatment planning for a lot of the radiation cases. And if we now combine that effort with a machine that, since our machine scans, do a CT scan of the patient in the treatment position, you pretty much have all the information, and I can foresee that we almost do this in an autonomous fashion. It's like a self-driving car. Sense where you are. Our system should really be able to sense where the patient is, where the patient's body is on the day of treatment, where is the cancer, and that could be verified by people in a remote position. So I do believe this machine, also because nothing rotates, the machine is stationary. Vibrations and rotation problems with the radio frequency is all going to be minimized. So I do believe this is the way forward for serving the people in developing countries. I just want to make very, very sure this is not a machine developed for developing countries. It's the machine absolutely developed for the top level, best radiation therapy in the world that will then be able to take this technology to developing countries.
Thank you so much. It is truly an honor to talk with you, Nick. And if you, after the broadcast, I will talk with you if you stay online. That actually, that's thank you so much. It is truly an honor and educational, and we need to know you educated all of us about the new advances in the cancer therapy. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you very much. Anybody can try and find me. Just Google my name on
Yeah,
Google, and
your
you'll
name
find
is
my contact information.
so www.leocancer.com, right? That your
Leo
company
Cancer
name.
Care, www.leocancercare.com, and mine is just Nick,
Yeah,
Niek at leocancercare.com.
they can see your when they see
Right.
your name, you can see that. Thank you so much. It's truly an honor.
Thank you, Rama.
We are retelling their stories through our patented designs that can be worn on scrubs, t-shirts, printed on conference bags, and endless other promotional materials. Daily Wear for Medicine is the first ever of its kind to create curiosity in medicine through visual art. We at MedBricks are celebrating unsung heroes of the past who made enormous contributions to the field of medicine through our unique campaign called Daily Wear for Medicine. You can wear it, carry it, and give it